everybody. Today I'm here with another wonderful writer, Robin Wild Hansen, and we will talk about his book Conscious Living and one's life calling and mission in life, which Robin calls the great work. So, Robin, could you tell us more about this great work and what it is, and maybe why you decided to call it the great work?
Yeah, absolutely. The great work is, it sort of has a double meaning if you think about it, because the great means that it is a lot of work, and it is often more work than you would have agreed to doing if you had known that it was going to be that much work before you started. Like we both know that about writing, for example. And it's also great because it is something that goes beyond the boundaries of everyday life. It is great because it is something that the person like you, if you think about your great work, see as truly great, because it goes beyond goes beyond what would just be your everyday life and would have to make you become someone greater in order to accomplish that great work. And when we think back on people who have accomplished that great work in history, for example, then what they did is something that we would call great. And there are so many examples of this. It's not like every person has to be like one of the great people in history, but it's a good thing to get inspiration from. And one example is Nelson Mandela's great work to get rid of apartheid in South Africa. I mean, that was something that went beyond any boundaries of everyday life that I'm sure he could possibly have conceived. I mean, it even involved him going to prison for many years. I believe it was 28 years that he spent in prison doing his great work. So it's the word great isn't too much to describe it.
Can you maybe give more examples of the great work?
Yes, sure. The thing is that the great work, as I write in the beginning of the book, the great work is independent of judgment. That's one of the headings in the book, and that means that the great work can be something that we see as positive, or it can be something that we generally see as negative. The main feature of the great work is that it's something that you are so passionate about that it can be what what gives meaning to your life. So one of the features of the great work is also that to other people, if you would tell them about it before starting, they would probably say that it's impossible. So one controversial great work, because it's still a great work because it was an obsession for him, but not something that we would generally regard as a very positive thing, was Cortés, who invaded Mexico with an army of 500 men. And he did this because he became absolutely obsessed with the idea about the El Dorado and this land where there was just such an abundance of gold. And he wanted to find it, and he wanted to conquer it. This is one of the points also, that if you want to avoid somebody's great work having a negative effect on the world, then you, if you have positive intentions, should not hold yourself back, but should be accomplishing your great work. In my opinion, if enough people accomplish their great works, that will prevent the negative people from having this huge impact in the world. Because if somebody who has negative intentions, if he manifests his great work and is not afraid of doing it, and all the other people are afraid of manifesting their great work, what they do instead is that they just follow that person. They just, if you live in a society that is a dictatorship because somebody rose up using his great work and his way of seeing the world, which might not be at all the best way of seeing the world, and everybody's afraid and they just agree with what he says, even though they sort of know that it's not true, but they lie even to themselves, and they say, no, I got to stay safe, I got to put my head down, not manifest my great work, but just resonate with his great work. Then every time somebody does that, then that negative person's great work gets strengthened because they had the courage to do it. Therefore, it is extremely important that you abandon your fear of accomplishing your destiny. If you have that feeling of destiny, that's what you're supposed to be doing, no matter what other people are, what other people's opinions are about it, because it's your unique perspective.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like if you don't follow your inner leader, you could actually start following some negative leader, or because I think there's an inherent need for some leadership in us. So maybe if we don't follow ourselves, we can easily be, manipulated into following someone else's lead.
Absolutely. And you can be pretty sure that there's no guarantee that that other person has your best interest at heart.
Yeah, definitely.
They will usually have their own best interest at heart. So it really is something that comes from the inside. And it does depend on how much you're in touch with your own inner life.
Yeah.
So you might be at a point in your life where, to put it bluntly, you've made so many choices that went against who you really are, that you no longer are able to feel or recognize what the way is for you. There are different reasons, but usually because we want to go for an easy solution every time. And the easy solution is to follow the path of least resistance, which is the one that other people agree with, or the one that your lower nature wants you to follow, which is something else that I talk about in the book, with the lower nature and the higher nature. And the lower nature is the one that tells you should make the choice that requires the least of you. So instead of accomplishing your great work and being happy, you should sit around eating pizza and feel momentary pleasure. And after that, if you go on this binge, it's not like I'm a saint. I've gone on many binges, but I still sort of see it for what it is, like pizza and other stimulants, whatever it may be, alcohol, drugs, TV, social media. They don't bring happiness. They bring pleasure, and you can measure it in the brain that there is an immediate reward in the brain, but at the same time, afterwards, there's a drop in the synaptic neurotransmitter levels, because it goes up, then it goes down, and then you need another stimulant in order to keep your level of neurotransmitters up, and that leads to a negative cycle. but still, it's what we get encouraged to do. We get encouraged to listen to our lower nature, because that's where the money is. Like, we live in a society where, and don't get me wrong, I'm not against the society. I think it's great that we have so many possibilities in our society, but the reason, the fact that we have so many choices, so many alternatives, means we also have to be careful, because you can get lost in all that stimulation. And we do live in a society where we get encouraged by advertising to choose the easy solution, to choose a product instead of choosing our great work. So if a product can make you feel like you feel depressed and you eat, I don't know, you eat an ice cream or like 10 ice creams, that's the product solution, right? Or you pop a pill. I mean, that can be the right thing to do sometimes, but still, the idea that the solution to your problems is to take a psychoactive pill on the long term, I think is wrong. Like, if you feel that life is meaningless, then it's meaning that is the cure for that. It's not stimulation. It's not a pill. It's not food. It's not drugs. It's not entertainment. It is meaning. Meaning is not the easy path, but it is the path of the higher nature and the path of the great work.
Yeah, nicely said. Yeah, and I remember in your book, The Conscious Living, which I recommend, by the way, very much, because it's brilliant. And I read it at the right time, and it gave me a lot. And I remember you described the dark and light side of procrastination when it comes to the great work, which I enjoyed, because I think we don't always think of this, that it might have a light part, actually. So if you could elaborate on this idea of procrastination.
Sure. Well, the light side of procrastination is kind of the cute side. It's where you have a formal deadline. You have to hand in your term paper, or you have any task that needs to be done by a certain time, and there's somebody waiting for that task to be completed, and you know that you have to hand it in at that time, and you have a month, and you spend 29 and a half days like doing other stuff. Like, you have the file open in your computer, but like, you're clearing up your room, you're talking on the phone, you just have to check your Facebook profile, and then when there's like half a day left, you're like, oh my God, am I going to make it? And then, that's when panic sets in, and the panic is the cure, because when panic sets in, suddenly you work really effectively, or efficiently at least, and you work really fast, and you somehow get it done. Usually you don't get it done all that well. Like, if you leave it to the last moment, you can still have brilliant insights at the last moment, which is often what happens, because when you have limited time, like, the mind just comes up with something that can be really brilliant. But in order to create something that's really good, like, it's good to cover all the bases. So I've definitely done this a lot, this kind of procrastination, but it is the cute side of procrastination, because you see people who do it, and it's kind of cute. Like, you see people, like, I know someone, you can see that her house is absolutely spick and span. It means that she has some she has something that she has to do. So instead, she does everything else. Like, she's cleaning up her house, she's putting everything in the right places. She even she even designs new lamps for her house, or new things for her house while procrastinating. It's just anything that is a little less hard to do than the thing you're supposed to be doing. So in that way, she has a productive procrastination, and then at the last minute, she does it. But that's the light side, because it's kind of, it's cute and you do get your thing done at the end. But the dark side of procrastination is where you don't get the thing done at all because, or there's a danger that you never get it done, because that's when there's a real deadline that's not a formal deadline. And the real deadline is when, you meant to get in touch with a certain person who perhaps just an example, like you had a falling out and you haven't spoken for many years, and you're like, it's going to be a hard conversation, but I'm going to contact them one day, and we're gonna make up, and and we're gonna have this conversation. But then they die, and that's the deadline, right? And nobody told you it was the deadline. Like, there wasn't a formal deadline, and that's it. It's never going to happen. Like with the light side of procrastination, if you have a paper to hand in at university, you can usually hand it in next year or next term or something like that. Like, but this kind of thing, there's just no going back. It's life.
But do you think maybe sometimes the procrastination has some deeper meaning? Like, for example, I found out that sometimes when I procrastinate or when things don't go well, I'm maybe not meant to do them at that time, but I still need to learn something or experience something in order to complete it. That maybe it comes naturally to pause me in action, let's say. And then, like, things, when they start working and developing, then I feel like I do a better work.
Right, I see what you mean. Yeah, definitely. There are sometimes when you're not really ready to do a certain thing. I mean, you might be ready with one part of yourself, but another part is saying no way.
Yeah.
That's very possible. Like, the Jungian concept of the shadow, your persona. Your persona, basically, the persona is the public image of yourself, where that you also, I mean, most people believe that they are their persona, and you have a certain version of yourself, which is usually as a good person who does the correct things. And you usually believe that about yourself as well, and that's why you say, well, I'm going to do this thing, and it's the right thing to do. And that's your image, but you even believe it yourself, and that's why you can't understand why you say to yourself you're going to do it and you're just not doing it. And that's because the shadow is saying, no way, And I believe that many times when you're saying you're not meant to do it at that time, I think that's true in a way. In many times the shadow says, no, it's if you want to do that thing, you have to listen to me first. And so you can only, like, as you said, when you return to it and you find yourself more ready for it, because maybe through your procrastination you even did something or discovered something that is more in tune with what the shadow would like to be in your life.
Do you think, like, we all have a great work, or is it maybe just like that? I don't know, that some people don't have it or don't want to maybe have a great work? Or...
Well, it's a very good question, and it's one that's very hard to answer, because I've definitely met people who say, like, I don't have a mission in life, and I don't even, it's not really for me. And I think that that's okay. Not everybody feels that they want to accomplish something grand, but still, like, it's still something. Like, we all live with desire.
Yeah.
We all have desires, and like, even if your desire is not at the moment for something great, like, one path is to follow your desire, because if your desire is strong enough, I mean, that's a sign. Like, even if it's something selfish at the time that you want to manifest, well, it's your desire, so follow it, and it can lead you to greater things. I think that many people say, I don't want to be selfish, and we've learned, like, I think it's, I don't know if it's, I don't think it's in all cultures, but I think in European culture in general, we have the idea of we should not be selfish and listen to our desires. We should look at other people instead, or we should look at society instead. But your desire, your individual desire, is actually your inner self, like giving you some kind of hint of the direction it wants to go. And so sacrificing yourself for some thoughts about being being a good person for someone else is often counterproductive, because you often see that when people sacrifice themselves, the people they sacrifice themselves for don't really appreciate it. Like they don't want them to, because when you sacrifice yourself, like most people who sacrifice themselves end up blaming the people they sacrifice themselves for, right? That's that's those people who are being blamed would much rather, usually, unless there's something wrong with them, they would much rather that this person would stop sacrificing themselves and stop blaming them.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, and other people want you to be happy, be yourself. Stop being toxic, you know, stop sacrificing yourself. And, like, because as soon as you do that, then you're like laying yourself on top of other people and with all your sacrifices. No, it's better. Like, and you're like, I've heard like older people saying, you know, I sacrificed myself for this family. I could have been a film star or whatever. Like, go and be a film star. You know, it'll be much better for everybody else. Just go and be a film star. Stop that nonsense. And okay, you want to be a film star. That's like the dream of our time. But then you start going in that direction. Maybe you will never be a film star, but you go in that direction of being a film star, and you start to realize who you are, because you're following your own journey, and you're getting to know yourself along the way, and you're like doing all these acting classes. You're evolving yourself as much as possible, and you might find a different calling that is closer to your soul at that time. And maybe the calling to be a film star was calling of your ego, or maybe not. Maybe you really are meant to be a film star. So, you know, in any case, follow it. The lower nature is afraid of suffering, so it's afraid of pain. So it's trying to get away from the pain of feeling that you're not good enough. And therefore it says, no, let's do it next year. You know, let's do it next year. And it knows that the plan is never to do it, but it would be too painful again to say we're never going to do it. You, me, and the lower nature. So we're just going to say, I'll do it next year. I'll do it tomorrow, because it's not painful to say that. But that means you don't have any clear direction. It just means that you're lying to yourself. To avoid the pain. And I mean, I think we all do this, you know. It's not like I'm sitting here and saying that you people are lying to yourself and you're afraid of pain. Like, I know about that. Man, as being a writer, I'm sure you know this very well. Like, man, rejection, you know, it's something you learn to tolerate as a writer. And it's painful. I mean, at least for me, it's really painful. Every time I can't lie, you know, it's like I get a rejection letter, or I get like someone who, you know, not as many people bought the book as I thought, or, you know, it's because review. I'm sorry.
Bad review.
Bad reviews, right? Yeah. So it's painful, but so I think that it's you know, it's a good thing what we're doing, like as writers, because you get so many rejections. Well, some people don't, I guess, but I think most people do. That it hardens you, right? It means, it's like a question: do you really want this? Are you ready to go through 1,000 rejections or 10,000 rejections? Like, yeah, it's meaningful, so I'm going to go for it, even if it's,
Yeah, it
painful.
kind of shows you that perfectionism doesn't make much sense because each person views something ideal or perfect differently. So
Right,
you can write a book and someone can resonate with it and say that it's perfect, and another person can throw it in the trash, and say that it's
right.
a nonsense. So I think it just shows us that maybe this perfectionism is futile. That
hmm That's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I've had that experience when somebody really liked something I created, and several people said it, and I started to get addicted to hearing that. And then someone would come along who would criticize it, and I would feel like my mood would drop because I'm like, no, but everybody loves it, and yeah, and it's true. Like, you can't, not everybody's gonna love it.
yeah.
Like something that you made, it's not everybody who's gonna like it.
And what do you think about having more great works? Do you think some person can have maybe more great works to
Yeah,
accomplish?
abs- absolutely, yeah. I think that, well, from what I have experienced, it's I think it's one great work at a time. That's uh, but I don't know, maybe not. But one great work at a time, and then once you have done this great work and it has changed you, because the great work always changes you. Uh, then something else might come along, which is in accordance with the new person who you are after you've accomplished this great work. And it's what you resonate with at that time. Because a person is not the same person all their life. I mean, you see a photo of someone as an infant, and as a young person, as a middle-aged person, as an elderly person, it's not the same person. It's you have many things that are different about you, and especially if you keep accomplishing great works, then you can see a great evolution just looking at the person's face.